Okay, so here we have Riverside grape. So this is one of two types of wild grapes. One of them is fox grape and the other is Riverside. And so one of them, so fox grape is much larger with berries up to this big or so, sometimes larger. And so you can take these and do all sorts of stuff with them, but first you got to make sure you know that it's a grape, not something else. So first thing to look at is the leaves, because there's a thing called Canada moonseed, which looks similar to wild grapes, but does not have teeth on these leaves. So you want to make sure the leaves have teeth. And another thing is that you can see the stem attaches to the end of the leaf, right to the edge there. And on Canada moonseed, it attaches to the underside, so like right about there. And another thing is that wild grape has tendrils on it. So let me see if I can find some tendrils. This doesn't seem to have very many, but right here you can see some tendrils, some Y-shaped tendrils. And so Canada moonseed doesn't have any tendrils. It just wraps around what it grows on. And this attaches its tendrils to whatever it grows to. And so Canada moonseed, it also produces things like grapes, but they're not edible, and they have a single crescent-shaped seed. And so there's also porcelain berry, and so porcelain berry doesn't produce things like grapes, but if you're trying to eat the other stages of it, you might mistake it for porcelain berry. So porcelain berry does have very similar looking leaves, and it has Y-shaped tendrils, but what porcelain berry doesn't have is like shaggy peeling bark. So you can sort of see over here, the bark is partially peeling off, and so on porcelain berry, it would not peel off at all. It would be very smooth bark. So once you've identified that what you have is a type of grape, there's multiple things you can eat. So the first thing is the leaves. So in spring, when the leaves start appearing, the young leaves you can pick, and the very small ones you can eat, but the ones maybe this size, somewhat larger, you can pick and you can steam them, and then you can stuff them with rice and other things and make stuffed grape leaves, which are very delicious. And you can also pickle them, and you wouldn't want to eat the leaves themselves, but they help keep the other pickles in the jar crisp. And then, so another thing you can eat is just these tendrils, like these. And so they're just like a little thing that you might snack on as you walk by. They're little tart things. But the main thing that you eat generally is the grapes. So these, like I said, these are very small because these are not fox grape, they're Riverside. But there's the two different kinds of grape are very different, because when you, what I've found is that when you juice these small grapes, the Riverside ones, they don't have very much acidity, because what happens is when you juice them, you'll get this sludge at the bottom of the juice that will settle after you leave it in the fridge or leave it out for a while. And so you don't want this sludge because it's very acidic and will burn you. And so you want to pour off the juice and leave the sludge there and then discard it. But once you have the, when you have the grape juice, it's great. But if you're just mashing up the grapes by hand, it'll start to burn your hands a little. So you want juice with the least of that as possible. And I find that these smaller Riverside grapes have much less acidity than the larger fox grapes. So I find that these are better for juicing, while the other ones are better for just eating. And so to make the juice, you just want to go through a strainer and kind of mash up your grapes just by hand. You could use other methods probably, but that's generally what I do. And so then you have just the skins and the seeds, which will stay inside of the strainer while the juice will go through. You have this dark purple, very strong flavored juice, which is relatively tart, so you might want to sweeten it or water it down, but it's very delicious. These grapes are one of the latest fruits. They appear in August and September, and that's generally when we harvest them. And they grow generally on the edges of meadows because they like sun, but they also want something to grow on. So you can see here they're growing on, I think, an oak tree, which is very concealed by the grapes.